Hello everyone. Well, you guys love better content and we do too, but usually we go with small cube tanks, sometimes even low tech. So today I'm gonna build a high-tech, not cube Beta tank for you. Now, Denelle just came out with a new Beta lineup, some specific Beta products, and they've changed their philosophy about Beta keeping as well. So nowadays, instead of the old 20 or 30 liter cube tanks, they actually recommend the 35 nano tank for keeping betas, and that's what I'm going to use today. This build has been sponsored by Denelle, so I'm going to use as many Denelle products as I can. The tank itself is going to be the Nano Tank 35, which used to be the Scapers Tank 35. And this one is the white glass, which is basically the OptiWhite version of the tank. As for the light, I'm going Chihiro's with the new B series, which we haven't used in the gallery yet, but it's a perfect balance for having enough light, but not too much. Obviously, this is quite a, well, it's not a shallow tank, but it's not too high. And for the Beta, we don't want the tank to be too bright. The tank comes with the mat attached to the bottom. Now, this tank is 40 centimeters long, so we're using the B30, which is, the light itself is 30 centimeters, but you can extend it to 45, so perfect for this size. Whenever you are using an extendable light like this, obviously try to aim it to be in the middle of the tank, which this one isn't, so you need to play around with it for a bit. As for the hardscape, I have a basic idea of what I want. I'm going to have a barrier made out of wood, soil and plants behind, and gravel in front of it. And we're going to do Lego style. I love this piece of wood, but it's actually too big. That's it for the hardscape, actually. I want this to be heavy planted, so the size of the tank is really good in a regard that if you make a thin line like this out of hardscape, there's lots of space behind for the plants. And actually this piece of wood, it has been cut. I don't know if it was cut by us or we received it like this, but it lines up with the edge of the tank almost perfectly, so that gives it a good dynamic towards the other side. Quickly gonna do bit of gluing. I just glued the two pieces of wood together, and then I'm going to glue the bottom one to the glass, actually, to prevent it from floating and to make it a bit easier for the maintenance crew. Okay, so now this is all one piece, and I'm going to go ahead with the soil. I'm going to use the Denelle system, which is the Scapers soil, which is an active soil, and underneath the FB1 substrate start, which is a kind of bacteria to keep the soil fresh and prevent stuff like cyanobacteria and so on. This is kind of like a powder, you just pour it in underneath the soil. No need to think too much about it. It's not sand, however it looks like that. I want the soil to follow the top line of the bottom piece of wood. So we're going to have plants right behind that. And in here, I don't want to make a barrier between the soil and the gravel I'm going to use. So it's going to be tricky the first few days to keep it clean. But I'm going to try to plant densely on the corners. So once the plants start rooting in, they're going to prevent the soil mixing with the gravel quite quickly. So I'm going to use the Denelle Natural Gravel Okavango. These type of gravels need to be cleaned before use, so I just rinsed it a couple of times. Here we are at planting, and what I have prepared is a bunch of Bucephalandras and two types of Anubias. From Bucephalandra, this is the Kedagang, and these three are actually new ones from Stoffels. It has these small dots on the leaves. They are like a metallic paint. They sparkle, and the color of that sparkling is what the name suggests. Actually, I selected a few bigger pieces of the same gravel from Danella because I'm gonna glue some pieces of plants on it so I can throw them around in the front. I just hope these rocks are heavy enough to keep the plants down. That's it for plants in the front, and the rest is going onto the wood. We are done with the epiphytes, so I'm going with the planted ones, and I'm starting with a bunch of crypts. While I'm planting, I'm going to talk about fertilization, because since this is a full Danella setup, we're going to use Danella ferts as well, which we haven't done in the gallery before. So Danella has two different lineups for fertilization. There's a basic one and there's a pro one. PlantCare Pro is basically microelements, but made in a concentration for a heavily planted aquarium. Then the Carbo Bio is what, as the name suggests, it's a carbon source for plants, sort of similar to Secam XL. These two go from day one, and then after about 2 months, this really depends on what kind of fish you have and what kind of plants you have. But obviously we're only going to have a single beta in here, so that doesn't really give you a bunch of nitrates and phosphates. So we have NPK, nitrates, phosphates and potassium. And this is recommended to be started dosing after sometime between 1 and 2 months. So I think we're going to go with about 6 weeks, but it's best to just check your plants. They're going to tell you when they actually need additional elements by changing their color and having small holes in the leaves. They'll usually suggest that it's time to give them more fertilizer. Dosage on all these is weekly, but we always recommend to use any weekly fertilizer divided to days. This is the second layer of plants, which is the Albedo Brown, because it's the next one in size. And I'm actually mixing it in a bit. It's much more natural that way. This goes on the edge, and it's gonna look perfect looking through this hole. I have two types of Rotalas. I have the Orange Juice and the HRR. These are going to run up from the crypt Blixa corner, following the top line of this wood. These stem plants are actually not in the best condition they can be in, but them being a stem plant, as long as there are healthy roots and you plant them, they get well underwater very quickly. This is a good lesson not to throw out any plants that are not looking 100%. Once you actually plant them, they can usually survive much more than you would expect them. I'm going to add Blixa japonica here in the corner behind the Eriocaulan. Kind of get a bunch of light in this corner, so probably it's going to turn a bit reddish after some time, which going to complement the red tones coming across the back of the tank. That's it. I have one more thing, the Lotus. I decided the crown jewel of this tank is gonna be, well, obviously the betta, but before that, the Lotus. Bettas love to have some plants with long stems where they can just hide behind. So a few more things I'm gonna use in this setup. First of all, the Aquarium Starter Rapid. Now, this product is a kind of bacteria that if you add when starting the tank, you can add your first fish 24 hours later. Live filter bacteria, and the second one is Bioactivator. There are 3 betta-specific products from Danella. First one is the Betta Booster fish food, which we've had for years, and it's a very good food actually for betta fish. So we're going to use this for feeding. And then there's 2 types of liquid, the Betta Water and the Betta Care. Now, Betta Water is like a dechlorinizer, so it's like your Secam Prime and so on. but it's specifically made for bettas. It has something in it that actually helps with the keeping the fins of the fish healthy, which is, well, it's a very big thing with bettas. They like to rot their fins, actually. No, this is a proper disease. Look into it. Since we're using RO water in the gallery, we won't use this. But the better care we're actually going to use in this tank is to protect the fins, the gills, and the mucous membrane of your fish, so it keeps the skin of it healthy. We actually use this in the fish room because we had some issues with bettas before, and it works magic. We don't have issues anymore with the bettas, so it's good. This tank is actually going to be the furthest point from the air conditioning system in the shop. So while most of the showroom is temperature to 23 degrees, this is quite far away from that, and it obviously is the summer, so probably it's going to be hot enough for the betta without a heater. Later on, we're going to obviously check temperature regularly, and if we need to, then we're going to put in some kind of heater, probably hidden behind the plants. I think that's it for today. After I disappear, you're going to see the tank filled up with the betta in it after 24 hours. And then obviously a couple of weeks to have the tank looking nice as well, not just the betta. Thank you for joining me for this. See you next time. Goodbye.